Welcome back. It's the Scaling Secrets podcast. Brannon Poe is here. He's the founder of Poe Group Advisors. They sell accounting practices and they coach firm owners. They're located at poegroupadvisors.com. And we're going to find out from Mr. Brannon himself about how he has been on a path from being an accountant, a CPA on his own, and then just took the Scaling Secrets idea literally and just kind of built this whole thing. He's active in his profession and in his community. So we'll find out the secrets from Brannon, what makes him tick, how he overcame all those pesky things like low confidence or not sure how to think your way out of a situation, and what he's built since then. So Brannon, glad to be speaking with you.
Nice to be here, Robert. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. And so we introduced you a little bit, hyped you up, but in your own words, what are you all about? What has you focused, passionate, excited?
Well, I love growing a business. I think stagnation in a business is the worst, and I'm excited about helping accountants get past stagnation and entrepreneurs in general. I was past president of the EO Charleston chapter. EO is Entrepreneurs Organization for those that don't know, and yeah, I just love seeing people prosper in business and do well and enjoy what they're doing.
Very nice. And we all want that. And I have to admit, when I was younger, I didn't like accountants. I didn't like numbers guys. I thought maybe they were boring or sort of like space cadets. But the older I get, the more I'm like, hey, this stuff, there's something to that. And it can be a lot of fun. And you hear stories about these accountants who they can like completely like turn a business around or look at the books and say, hey, you need to be doing more of this, less of that. And so what is your thought process? Like what sort of like problems do you solve and how do you go about it?
Well, we have a coaching program for accountants, and so we teach accountants how to be more valuable to their clients. Our program's called Accounting Practice Academy, and I think a lot of accountants don't do a great job of helping business owners make decisions and help them understand their numbers. So one of the things we do is we help accountants think about that and figure out how to focus on that. A lot of them are just buried in their own businesses. They're buried in the day to day, and they don't have time to focus on where the real value is for their clients, which is helping them understand their numbers better. And so that's what we do. And I've seen it. I've been involved with EO for many years, and one of the things about EO is you're in a forum. So you're grouped with 6 to 8 other entrepreneurs, and it's a 4-hour monthly meeting. So it's a very meaty, involved meeting. And I'm surprised at how many business owners don't understand their numbers, and they don't understand their cash flow, and they get into trouble with cash flow because they're just not focusing on the right things. That's a really important thing an accountant can help a business owner do is stay focused on the things that really drive the business and keep it profitable and keep the cash flow strong.
And so why don't business owners pay attention to the numbers like they should? Do they just not know? Are they emotionally afraid of it? Do they not have these diligent habits? What's the reason you're seeing?
I think it may be a combination of those things. Many of them don't fully understand the numbers. A lot of them are sales and marketing oriented. And so that's where they focus their efforts, is just on those things. And then as a business owner, your attention gets interrupted and pulled in a million different directions every day. And if you don't stay focused on the right things, it's easy to lose that attention on the things that do matter. And that's why, I've seen entrepreneurs get in trouble with cash flow because they're not understanding the cash flow cycle, and they don't understand in, a month or 2 months or 3 months in advance that, hey, if we don't do something differently now, the ship is steering toward a cash flow problem. And you have to catch those things when there's plenty of time to do something about them.
Right, to have that predictiveness and it seems like it's maybe like a time management issue, right? Like if you just kind of live every day putting out the fires and dealing with whatever comes to you, that might work will for a while, but it leaves things up to random chance, doesn't it? And if you're looking specifically to grow, or if you're looking for your business to weather some rough times, and it seems like you need to take this sort of thing seriously. And is there an easy solution for it? Like, do you teach these accountants to say like, hey, dedicate time like once a month or once a week, or just how do we get these business owners everywhere to start taking this seriously?
Well, I think a lot of the business owners need to be proactive with their accountant, because if you're waiting for the accountant to offer this service, you might not ever hear from the accountant. So you have to be proactive, and you have to be willing to pay for the extra service and the extra time. And it's an investment. If you don't feel like it's a good investment with that accountant, you need to go find another accountant. So um, I think the easiest way is just set up meetings on a regular basis to go over your financials with whoever's doing your work, your bookkeeping, and get their impressions on your P&Ls. Have a standing either monthly or quarterly at a minimum 1 hour consult with your accountant, and that will pay huge dividends, not just in terms of business planning but tax planning as well. Um, yeah, estate planning, all sorts of things can pop up in those conversations that can be very helpful. I take my own advice. So a few years ago, I said, I'm a CPA myself. I haven't done my own taxes for like 15 years now because we're focused on brokerage work. And I was like, I need to have a quarterly meeting with somebody who's really familiar with my numbers and get their impression on what they see. And it's been a huge benefit to our business.
And that's a wonderful habit to pick up, right? This sort of quarterly standing meeting to have someone else look at your numbers so that way they can have this outside perspective. And this day and age, with the Zoom meetings and the documents being in the cloud, there's really no excuse, right? You don't have to drive to some office. You don't have to like print out a bunch of papers. They can all be looked at pretty quickly and efficiently. And so when people kind of start up with this habit, is it rough going the first few times? Because I'm thinking of, okay, when someone tells me to do something, right? Like go to the dentist for the first time in a while, I'm already thinking of like reasons to chicken out of it. And so what's it like? Is it like a awkward growth stage when they start kind of doing these quarterly meetings?
Really don't think it has to be that way. I think it could be that way if you don't have a good relationship with your accountant. But if it's that way, if it feels really super awkward, either one of two things has to happen. Either you've got some really messy problems with your books and that needs to be cleaned up, or you don't have the right accountant, you don't have the right partner. I feel like a good accountant is sort of like a very critical, almost partner that you need to have for your business. Um, if it's truly a good fit, then those conversations should be pretty natural and pretty um, almost conversational. I mean, my conversation with my guy every quarter is it's not awkward at all. It's very conversational. It's relaxed. Sometimes it can be very engaging because he's bringing me new information, and yeah, I find it extremely valuable overall.
Wonderful. So there is a better way. And so do you have any kind of fun anecdote to share about, like you're mentioning, sometimes you do this meeting and your guy has some idea or like has some insight that you wouldn't have had otherwise. Does anything come to mind as like, has anything been like super mind blowing for you? Or did you have a meeting and say, man, like that's a great idea. I'm glad I did this?
Well, yeah, there's this thing that I didn't even know about called a cash balance retirement vehicle. And I'm a CPA, and I've been a CPA. I was with E&Y when I started my career for a long time. No one's ever told me about a cash balance program. I didn't know what it was. And it's a way to sock away a lot of retirement money in like 2 to 3 year period of time, and tax deferred. It's like a supercharged 401k, and no one had ever told me about it. So that's one thing that he's alerted me to. But there have been many other things. And I'm in the business of um, working with CPAs, so I get a lot of inside information about CPA firm from him, like ideas of how he runs his CPA practice, the conferences he attends, those sorts of things. So that's been valuable as well.
Well, wonderful. And this is some great awareness, right? That there, and I have, whenever I meet with my CPA, which is only yearly, but I need to up my game, then he'll say, "Hey, do you know there's this new thing, or do you know they stopped this other program?" Like, there's always some kind of newsworthy, like, some program, or they changed this percentage rate on that, and it just seems, as a layperson, it's tiring to try to keep up with that. Or even if I learn about something new in the tax code, I'm like, I learned that, but I'm not really even sure if I'm getting it right or if I'm understanding it. So I can definitely see how a real expert says, "Hey, this came down the pipeline and you should know about this." And there's always something new to know. And we're living in this kind of information overload age where the information is out there, but what's relevant for me? What can I use now? And what's even practical as far as, like, what I'm doing as far as my actions. And so you train these CPAs, and what sorts of, like, transformations have you provided to these CPAs? Like, what are they kind of maybe doing incorrectly, and you say, "Hey, do this instead"?
Well, I mean, there's a number of things that they do. The ones that are the most successful with our program uh, prune their businesses. A lot of CPAs are overworked; they work too many hours, and they have too many clients that are really not good fit clients for them. And so a lot of them have to prune their practices. They have to let go of some clients. They have to sometimes let go of some employees. Um, Sometimes entire lines of business. They kind of get unfocused in what their offerings are because one client might need something, but all the other clients that they have don't really need that thing. And so they start going into this other, you know, area of practice that they really are just dabbling in. So sometimes they get rid of the things that they're dabbling in and just double down on the things that are working. And that can have a profound effect on a practice. We had one owner that went through, they grew their top line revenue 25% in about a year after taking the program. And the bottom line grew almost all of it, about 80 to 90% of that top line growth went to the bottom line, and they worked less hours. So um, if a consultant who deals with a lot of a particular industry can really tell you a lot about how you're running your business in that industry. I think it's that specialized focus is how we're able to bring value specifically to accountants.
And it seems like a recurring theme in our conversation here is have that outside perspective, right? Don't think that you can drill your own root canal or do your own surgery. Have someone else look at what's happening. And is it so? It seems like this whole idea of the cleaning out the clutter, right, and the 80/20 reconfiguring, whatever it is you want to call it, where maybe, like, when we grow our businesses, there's definitely those seasons of randomness where we say, "Hey, let's do this, let's try this, let's do this experiment, let's see what happens." And then it seems like maybe over time, if we don't have this stage of taking inventory and cutting out what's not working, doubling down on what is working, then it seems like there's a little bit of a drift where you said, like, well, you end up with this type of client, you end up kind of just dabbling in all these other things. And so is the before and after process difficult, painful? When these CPAs, they go through your course, they say, "Oh my gosh, I have a big old list of things I need to change." Like, what happens then? Like, do they? Is it like a year-long process, a 3-week process? Like, how does the change happen, and what maybe is the resistance to their change?
Well, I think the resistance to their change is just their own, based on their own human nature, right? Some of us are more comfortable with change than others, and some of us are more resistant. Um, there's a lot of things that are fearful, like having price discussions with clients is not something people typically like doing, so they have to kind of create some discipline around that. Um, but for most of our clients, they need to give themselves a year to make a lot of the changes um, that they typically uncover going through our academy, which is an 8-week, almost like a boot camp. And so this 8-week strategy building session, usually a year, they can make significant progress in a year, but they probably need to revisit a lot of those things on an annual basis. I think like pricing decisions, how you price your services probably needs to be revisited once a year. A lot of these things need to be tuned up from time to time.
Fair enough. And that is powerful. This idea that, well, it's not just a one time event. If you treat it that way, then you might backslide, right? You might raise those prices, and then later on, next year in a panic, you change things, or maybe you don't raise them again, and you should. And so, in all of your years of doing the CPA thing and helping these businesses, has anything really surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of surprises, especially going through the financial crisis. I mean, our main business is helping CPA firm owners buy and sell practices. So we're brokers. Um, of late, what's surprising is the amount of private equity interest in the accounting industry. So there's a lot of private equity firms that are out buying deals. The financial crisis of 08, 09, I was selling firms then, and that was an interesting time. We had banks that were basically um, killing deals that were approved prior. That was crazy time, and that was rough. That was a rough time to own any business, myself included.
Well, this idea of buying and selling accounting firms, it sounds exciting, right? It hurts my brain just to think about the possible scope and scale and all the work is involved. So, can you tell us about some of this? Like what's even the rough like dollar figure, employee size, timeline, what goes into buying and selling accounting firms?
Well, we're kind of like a marketing company in a sense. We're finding people that want to sell, and we're finding people that want to buy. We have a lot of content on our website so that, you know, typically people are doing research prior to the time that they want to sell or buy. There's a period of time where they're just thinking about it and exploring. So we do a lot to kind of capture people who are in that explorative mode. And then it's just having conversations with them and seeing when they're ready to sell. And we very much focus on fit. I think that the one thing, if you're ever going to do a deal, if you're on the buy side or the sell side, the fit needs to be what you focus on. I think a lot of people come into deal making and they're understandably concerned about the price and the terms and the return on investment and all those sorts of things. And those are definitely important considerations early on. But what's going to determine the success in a professional services environment is that the service and the management style of the new owner is going to be similar enough to the previous owner where there won't be a mass problem of clients or staff leaving soon after the purchase. So it's important to focus on fit, especially in that professional services environment.
And you mentioned a little bit about kind of the extracurriculars to help with that fit, right? That you do the blogging, you're doing the publicity right this instant, right? You're on a podcast here. You mentioned before about doing the EO Entrepreneurs Organization, but sometimes I I psych myself out as far as the extracurricularness of it, right? Like, oh, I need to do a podcast, need to do a YouTube video, need to go to this conference, and it's not like directly related to sales, right? It helps things, and I can't imagine living without it. But sometimes it's like, oh, well, is this really important, or I really need to do stuff? So, do you ever think about that? Do you ever think about like, what's my ratio of like the work versus the talking about the work or the publicity? Like, how do you reconcile that?
Well, I've been doing this a long time, so I'm a big believer in marketing and what it can do for you. Um, I think you have to set up some sort of way to measure it at least reasonably well. Um, and so we've set up a lot of metrics that measure, how much traffic we get on our website, how many forms get downloaded from our website, and then obviously we also track our sales activity. Um, and you kind of just have to manage it by the numbers, and if you have good tracking in place, you can see what's working on the marketing side and see what's not working. You can't always tell. A lot of times you can't tell. We try to ask clients like, hey, how did you hear about us? And sometimes they go, well, I saw this and then I got an email and then I saw this letter, and they got multiple touches. So, and that's okay. I think sometimes the multi-touch approach is what it takes to convert someone from just casually interested in your company to actually, having a phone call or engaging with you.
Wonderful. These are some great insights and lessons, even though they're nice and simple, but also doable, right? Track your website, see what gets more attention, and then ask your people. And that's also really cool to think about that. Well, it's not just one single marketing channel, or not everyone goes in the same sequence. Maybe there was the letter and the email and the phone call and the social media and the website and all those other things. So it tells me that it's all important, right? All the ingredients need to go into the soup, and we can't measure it all, but you measure what you can. You look at those website clicks and that data and have that educated guess. And so as far as these accounting firms that you've bought or sold or helped, is there any one that really stands out for you? Is there anyone that you really want to talk about, brag about, share a story about some kind of transformation you provided?
Well, back to that client that I mentioned earlier that grew like 500,000 in 1 year. They had a relatively small but good firm when they came to me, and they weren't sure if they wanted to sell or not. And just on the fence about retirement or staying in the business a few more years. And so I convinced him to take the academy. I said, take the academy. I think you'll understand what it'll take to change the business, to maybe make it where it's more manageable for you, where you want to stay in for a few years. Or you may get in there and you go, this is too much. I don't want to tackle this. I'm ready to sell. Like, I think he got some clarity on, I thought he would get clarity on which direction to go in. And so they took the program in the summer, and they really did a great job implementing in the fall. But I got a call in December, and he said, we actually do want to sell the business. We decided I'm done. And so, okay, so we put it on the market. It actually went under contract a month later. And so this was January, it went under contract. I get another call from him in March, and he says, hey, I think we need to let this deal collapse. And I said, oh, what's going on? He said, well, first of all, the buyer missed a deadline, so we have an easy out. The contract technically is it's out of bounds. So he said, I think we left a lot of money on the table because all the stuff we did in Academy is falling to the bottom line. I think we can get more for the business. And so we repriced it from right around 1.5 million up to just under 2 million. So a 25% increase. And we got it. We sold it later that year for that near almost the full ask. So, he added 25% value to the firm in a year. So, and he actually was able to have a tangible, it was sort of measurable because we put it on the market prior to knowing what those changes were. And then once he had done the projections for that next year, he knew, oh, wow, this stuff is really working. It's going to give us an immediate boost this coming year. We should put the business on the market for more money, which is what we did. So that was a cool example because we had, it was on the market sort of pre-change, and then it was on the market post-change.
Yeah, what a roller coaster. And in the end, it all worked out. And that's a great idea you had there of like, say you're in this position of saying, well, do I sell the business, hang on for a few more years? You're saying like, you don't have to decide that first and then take the academy. The academy might help your decision making, or might make you realize where the problems need fixing or what's possible, or just help you make the decision just with this added additional data. And so this is all wonderful to think about just getting this taken more seriously, getting these things dialed in. But since I don't know that much about buying and selling accounting practices, I don't know that much about you or your business. What's the missing hidden question in our conversation? What do you wish I was asking you, and can we just pretend that I just asked it?
Oh gosh. Um, what's the secret to scaling a business? I think it's letting go. I think that it's a series of letting go. And it's not about doing more to grow your business. It's actually about doing less and finding the right people who can take on more and more of what you do and you let go. And so the more you let go of as your business grows, if you can let go of prior to that growth, it will nature abhors a vacuum. And if you can prune your business and let go of things, better stuff will fill back in.
And is there a secret to that? Like, so we should let go and have other people take up the slack so that we can have more people working on it, and we ourselves as the business owner can focus on the higher level tasks. But what's the secret to that? How do we actually make it happen?
You've got to give yourself time to think about strategy. You've got to think, you got to detach from your business and be intentional about what you're letting go of.
I like it. And so, as far as in your journey and trajectory, is there something specific that you had to intentionally let go of? Is there anything come to mind as far as just something that maybe was difficult for you in order to get to that next level?
Well, there have been a lot of things that were difficult to let go, but I find that one of the modules in our workshop talks about taking time off, taking vacation, and really unplugging. The we have a book that's available on our website called The Unplugged Vacation, and that is very helpful at figuring out what you don't want to do when you go back to the office. And it also, like, taking time off is a force mechanism to kind of put more on your team so that you are truly unplugged when you're on vacation. I'm not talking about taking a vacation and working somewhere else. That's just called working remotely while your family's on vacation. Like really taking time off and detaching and not checking email, not checking into the office. If you can do that and prepare for that, um, you'll see your business change just from that.
That's huge, especially in this day and age where we're almost expected to be always on and working to the bone is somehow became cool. But I love how you said there's two sides of the coin there, right? There's the you're sort of forced to delegate and have someone else take over while you're gone. And then when you do come back renewed and refreshed, ideally, then you can consciously decide, well, hey, I was doing such and such task or this kind of job description just out of the existing momentum. But now that I was able to stop and restart, do I really want to start this again? It's like when you come back to school and it's a new school year or get a new job or something, it's like, well, now I can have this clean slate and I can say, well, hey, do I really want to continue doing this? And so these are powerful questions that we should be asking ourselves, and especially if there's some kind of a CPA firm that maybe they know things could be better and they should check out your academy. So tell us about some next steps here. If someone was listening to this podcast and they were impressed with what you, Mr. Brannon Poe, had to say, where should they be going? What's the websites? What are just the next logical courses to action?
Yeah, just go to our website. It's very simple to navigate. We have a lot of resources, which is the website is pogroupadvisors.com. And the Accounting Practice Academy, there is a link to the academy from the main website. Um, and that's the easiest way is to check us out online.
Very cool. That's Poe Group Advisors, POE groupadvisors.com. You can go there, you can click and find out about that academy and just get yourself educated, right? Figure out what interests you, what you end up reading about, learning about, and getting excited about how you can maybe achieve some new goals by having the outside help. Maybe if by now you've been relying on your existing team's thinking and actions and that got you here, but like you want to get to that next step, that next level, and PoeGroupAdvisors.com will help you to figure out what's possible, what's doable, and you should go there right now to see what's there. And as we wrap up our conversation here, Brannon, it's time to put you on the spot slightly and stump you and ask for a fun quote or lesson that has helped you in your journey that could possibly help us. So what comes to mind as far as a quote or lesson?
Well, it's begin with the end in mind, and that is from the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, um, the book, the classic old book. I read that book when I was 30 years old, and I what he means by that is like you set goals. What do you want the outcome to be, and you work towards that. And I always tell people like goal setting is powerful, and don't be shy. Like set yourself some big goals, and it's amazing what can happen to make those come come to fruition.
I agree completely. I heard something that said like only 3% of people have written goals. I was like, three single digits? That's crazy, but sad, but hopeful if we get turned on to this lesson and we say, hey, begin with the end in mind, set some goals, work towards them, revisit them, and get there. And PoeGroupAdvisors.com and their academy will help you with that. They help accountants buy, build, and sell exceptional firms. Go there right now. Poe Group Advisors. You're going to love it. Brannon Poe, wonderful speaking with you.
Likewise, Robert. Thank you.